you all are keeping safe at home. Before beginning with the class, let's have a look at the thought for the day. And today's thought for the day is really very important from a student's point of view. So let's see what's the thought. And the thought says, there is no substitute for hard work. Yes, as a student, we have to work a lot. We have to really work very hard because we have to study so many different subjects. We need to complete our notebooks. We need to learn them after writing, and then we need to appear for exams. So in doing all this thing, a lot of hard work is needed. If I become lazy and think that maybe I'll not do this work today, I'll do it tomorrow, so this procrastination will not help us out. So as a student, what am I supposed to do? I need to keep working hard throughout the year, every day. And this little efforts which you make every day will really give you surprising results at the end of the year. So just keep working hard and wait for the success. So now we are going to continue with our chapter Mother's Day from our snapshot book, and let's see whether Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald, are they able to get the expected results out of the hard work that they are putting in over here. So we are on page number 35. Let's start. As we had seen in our previous class, that how Mrs. Fitzgerald, she wants to help Mrs. Pearson. Okay. And these two females are totally in contrast with each other. Their personalities do not match, but yes, they are neighbors. And Mrs. Fitzgerald is aware of the fact that how the family of Mrs. Pearson treats her. So she wants that Mrs. Pearson behave boldly and she should put her foot down to let the family know that now there is a limit for everything. Okay. So Mrs. Fitzgerald wants her that this is the right time when they both are sitting and talking, and it's already time for the other family members to reach home. And Mrs. Pearson knows that once they are at home, they are again in a hurry to go out. So according to Mrs. Fitzgerald, this is the right time when Mrs. Pearson should start or should really be firm and tell the family how they are supposed to behave with her. So now let's continue. Mrs. Fitzgerald, coolly, you haven't got idea. Mrs. Pearson, we will do it. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you asked me to let you do it. So as Mrs. Fitzgerald says that if you are not able to do it, I will do it for you. I'll help you out. And then again, obviously, this idea does not suit to Mrs. Pearson, and she refuses for it. But then Mrs. Fitzgerald, she tries to make herself clear what she means by saying that let me do it for you. I did, but not as me, as you. So now she's creating a bit of confusion here, right? Like she says, okay, I did mean that I will do it for you, but not as me, that is Mrs. Fitzgerald, but as you, that is Mrs. Pearson. I will be behaving like Mrs. Pearson. But I don't understand. You couldn't be me. Mrs. Fitzgerald, we change places, or really bodies. You look like me, I look like you. So now Mrs. Pearson, she is not able to get the idea what Mrs. Fitzgerald wants to say. And then Mrs. Fitzgerald is explaining her that we change ourselves. Rather, It should be our souls should be changing. My soul goes into your body and your soul goes into my body. Right? And then we'll do what we really want to do. So, does this remind you of any movie? Like, have you ever seen this happening in any of the movies? Just try to find out. Okay? Not exactly changing the souls or bodies, but if you remember the movie PK, wherein PK doesn't know the language, so what is happening? He is holding the hands of that lady, and then he is able to learn all the vocabulary, all the language, right, that lady speaks. So that's like a part of magic. So if a person can hold hands and learn language, then there may be a possibility that by holding his hands and by spelling some spell, you can even interchange your souls. Okay? So this is what is exactly these two people trying to do over here under the guidance of Mrs. Fitzgerald. Mrs. Pearson. But that's impossible. How do you know? Ever tried it? So this idea of changing souls, Mrs. Pearson is unable to believe. And she says it's impossible. So Mrs. Fitzgerald says, how do you know? Have you ever given it a try? Did you ever try this before? No, of course not. I have. Not for some time, but still ought to work. Won't last long, but long enough for what we want to do. Learned it out east, of course, where they are up to all these tricks. So now Mrs. Fitzgerald says, if you haven't tried it, how do you know it's not going to work? But I am telling you because I have tried it. I have experienced it. And so I am telling you that this will really work. Maybe not for a longer time, we can interchange our souls and be, but yes, for whatever time, short time also, we are able to do this. This thing I feel is really going to work out in your case. And then what does she do? She just tries to hold hands out across the table, keeping the cigarette in her mouth. Give me your hands, dear. And then she starts with the magic. Mrs. Pearson, dubiously, doubtingly, well, I don't know. Is it right? So Mrs. Pearson is very apprehensive about all these things. She is not sure whether this is really going to work. And then Mrs. Pearson, and then Mrs. Fitzgerald, it's your only chance. Give me your hands and keep quiet a minute. Just don't think about anything. Taking her hands, now look at me. They stare at each other, muttering, Arashta dum, arashta lambam, lam dum bona. So now this is a spell, a magical spell with the help of which Mrs. Fitzgerald is trying to interchange the souls, right, by holding Mrs. Pearson's hand. Now if you are enacting this play, what should be the surrounding? What should be the atmosphere, the environment around on the stage? So let's have a look at that also. This little scene should be acted very carefully. We are to assume that the personalities change bodies. After the spell has been spoken, both women still grasping hands go lax, as if the life were out of them. Then both come to life, but with the personality of the other. Each must try to adopt the voice and the mannerism of the other. So now Mrs. Pearson is bold and dominating, and Mrs. Fitzgerald is nervous and fluttering. Yes, The other one is very bold and dominating, and this difference can be seen in their voice. So now when after the magic, as soon as the magic takes place, for some time these two females, they are lax, they are unconscious. And then again they come back to the life. But now when they are back to the life, what has happened? They are interchanged. Because their soul is interchanged, right? Now what has happened? The body is of Mrs. Pearson, but the soul belongs to Mrs. Fitzgerald. So all her way of talking, way of dealing, everything has changed. Whereas now the body is of Mrs. Fitzgerald, but the soul belongs to Mrs. Pearson. So in the same way, her way of talking, her way of behaving will also change. And this change should be clearly visible in these two characters now after the spell has taken place, if you are enacting this play. So these small little things to be kept in mind. Mrs. Pearson. Now with Mrs. Fitzgerald's personality, see what I mean, dear. She notices the cigarette. Here, you don't want that. She snatches it and puts it in her own mouth, puffing contentedly. So now Mrs. Fitzgerald's soul is in Mrs. Pearson. And she's talking to Mrs. Fitzgerald, who has got Mrs. Pearson's soul. And she sees that the body of Mrs. Fitzgerald, she has a cigarette in her hand. So now because the souls are interchanged, everything is changed, the behavior has changed, the mannerism is changed. So it's what she does. Very boldly she takes away the cigarette from Mrs. Fitzgerald's hand. Very boldly she takes away the cigarette from Mrs. Fitzgerald's hand and she starts smoking, saying that now she doesn't need it. Okay. Mrs. Fitzgerald, now with Mrs. Pearson's personality, looks down at herself and sees that her body has changed and gives a scream of fright. So Mrs. Pearson, as per her personality traits, she is shocked. She is shocked to see that her body has changed and she screams, she shouts loudly. Mrs. Fitzgerald with Mrs. Pearson's personality. Oh, it's happened. So Mrs. Pearson now says, oh, that's it. The magic has really taken place. Of course it's happened. Very neat. Didn't you know I had it in me? So now Mrs. Pearson says, oh yes, I can't believe it that it has happened. Now my soul is changed and your soul is in my body. Mrs. Fitzgerald, alarmed. She is all surprised, shocked. Why? Because Mrs. Pearson's soul is inside her. But whatever shall I do, Mrs. Fitzgerald? George and the children can't see me like this. So now she's still confused. Still she has not got the idea clear in her mind. What is Mrs. Fitzgerald up to? And she says, now when my husband and my children they come to home, they will not accept me in this form, that my body is changed and but my soul is the same. They're not going to accept me, they're not going to understand what is happening. Mrs. Pearson, grimly, they aren't going to. That's the point. They'll have me to deal with, only they won't know it. And then Mrs. Fitzgerald, soul in Mrs. Pearson's body. So now she says that, yes, that's what exactly the point is. They don't have to deal with you, but they have to deal with me. That is, the body belongs to Mrs. Pearson, but inside the soul is somebody else. So now they have to deal with me. And they won't even understand what has taken place. Because they would not imagine that such type of thing or the always troubled, thinking about something which is not going to happen or which has not yet happened. And she continues with this personality trait even when her soul is inside Mrs. Fizzle's body. And she's worried, what if we are not able to change back our souls? If the souls do not get interchanged again, what are we going to do in that case? Mrs. Pearson, here, steady, Mrs. Pearson. If you had to live my life, it wouldn't be so bad. You would have more fun as me than you have had as you. So, Mrs. Pearson, who has got the soul of Mrs. Fitzgerald, she says that if you have to lead my life, then you are not at loss at all. You would rather enjoy living my life. Yes, but I don't want to be anybody else. And then she says, Mrs. Fitzgerald, the soul is Mrs. Pearson's soul. So now she says, yes, but I don't want to be somebody else. I like to be what I am. Mrs. Pearson, now, stop worrying. It's easier changing back. I can do it anytime we want. So Mrs. Pearson, she says that don't worry. We can interchange our souls back anytime whenever we feel like or whenever you feel like. Well, do it now. So now Mrs. Fitzgerald, she says, okay, if that's possible, right now change. Let's interchange our souls again. Mrs. Pearson, not lightly, I have got to deal with your family first. That's the idea, isn't it? Didn't you know how to begin with them? You said, well, I'll show you. So now Mrs. Pearson, she says, no, not now. I'm not going to interchange our souls until and unless I put your family into right position. Until and unless I teach them how to respect you. And that was the idea what we were thinking about. So up till now you said you didn't know how to put them in the right place. So now I will do it for you. But what am I going to do? And Mrs. Fitzgerald, she asked, what am I going to do? Now see, this change of voice has to be there to show the different personalities. Mrs. Pearson, go into my house for a bit. There's nobody there. Then pop back and see how we are doing. You ought to enjoy it. Better get off now before one of them comes. So Mrs. Pearson, she says, okay, no problem. You just go to my house, stay there. After some time you can just come back. Because I want you also to see what's happening. How these people are taught lesson. So I want you to see all this thing and I want you to enjoy all this thing. So after some time you can just come back again. Mrs. Fitzgerald, nervously rising, yes, I suppose that's best. You are sure it will be all right? So then she said, okay, I must go. I also think same. But are you sure whatever you have planned, this is really going to work out? Mrs. Pearson chuckling. It will be wonderful. Now off you go, dear. So she is just making faces and she says, oh, don't worry about it. Everything is going to be fabulous. Everything is going to be wonderful. The only thing needed is, please go from here now. Mrs. Fitzgerald crosses and hurries out through the door right. Left to herself, Mrs. Pearson smokes away, lighting another cigarette and begins laying out the cards for patients on the table. So this is all the reason that the personality has changed. Mrs. Pearson, she is smoking, which is something very new. She has never done that before. Now she is not at all in a hurry to make any preparations because the family members are going to come back. Rather, she is still playing with her cards. She is laying the cards and trying to have patience. After a few moments, Doris Pearson comes bursting in left. She is a pretty girl in her early 20s who would be pleasant enough if she had not been spoiled. So now this is the daughter, Doris Pearson. She comes in and she is in a hurry. Right? She is in a hurry and she comes in and she starts shouting. What does she say? Doris, before she has taken anything in, Mum, you will have to iron my yellow silk. I must wear it tonight. She now sees what is happening and is astounded. What are you doing? She moves down left center. So, Doris enters into the house even without looking here and there, without even taking anything in her mouth, without even eating. She just, without looking at the mother, she orders that, Mom, you have to iron my yellow dress today because I am planning to wear that and go out. And then suddenly she notices and she is surprised. She is shocked to see what she is seeing. She is unable to believe her eyes and then she is asking, what are you doing? She is asking to her mother. Mrs. Pearson now uses her ordinary voice, but her manner is not flattering and apologetic, but cool and incisive. So obviously, now she cannot speak in the voice tone that of Mrs. Fizzle. She has to change. She has to come to the level of Mrs. Pearson. But only voice has come to that level, otherwise her behavior does not show any similarities with that of Mrs. Pearson. Okay? Mrs. Pearson, not even looking up. What do you think I am doing? Whitewashing the ceiling. So now she starts giving answers to whatever Doris is asking. She's saying, why you can't see what I am doing? Do you think I am whitewashing the ceilings? Doris, still astounded. She is still surprised and shocked. But you are smoking. So when Mrs. Pearson does not reply her properly, she herself says, but you are smoking. And then she said, that's right, dear. No law against it, is there? And he said, yes, that's right. You know it, that I am smoking. So why are you even asking it? Moreover, is there any law that says that I cannot smoke? But I thought, you didn't smoke. Then you thought wrong. Are we having tea in the kitchen? Then Doris, maybe all her life till now, she had never seen her mother smoking. And that's the reason why she is surprised. And then she tells her mother that I never thought that you would smoke. And then mother says, now you know. That's it. And then Doris is asking, is there something in the kitchen? Is tea ready or some snacks ready? Mrs. Pearson, have it where you like, dear. Do you mean it isn't ready? So the mother replies, wherever you feel like taking tea, having tea, you can go and have it. Which is clear indication which Doris understands that the tea is not ready. Yours isn't. I have had all I want. Might go out later and get a square meal at the Clarendon. So now mother says, I had my tea. I don't know about you, what you wish to. And maybe after some time I am also planning to move out and I'll have my dinner out tonight. Hardly believing her ears. Who might? She said, what did I hear? Did you say that you might go? So she's trying to confirm who might. Okay? And then the mother says, I might. Who do you think? Mother says, yes, I'm talking about myself. And who else you think I'm talking about? Doris, staring at her. Mom, what's the matter with you? And all this behavior Doris had never experienced up till now. She's never seen her mother this way. So she's very surprised. And then she's asking, what is the matter with you? Is everything alright? So we'll stop here for today. In our next video, we'll see what happened next. Until then, keep learning, keep experiencing. Stay safe. Bye-bye.